I built the same website and every major AI website builder using the exact same prompt to see which one actually finishes the job. And every one of these platforms, they promise the same thing. Describe what you want, hit generate, and a professional, ready-to-launch website appears in seconds. And that's the pitch in every demo, every landing page, every ad. But what happens when you push past that demo? When you ask for real authentication, a working database, actual AI features, not just a pretty homepage that looks done but isn't? And that's the part none of these companies ever show you. So I took one identical prompt and I ran it through every AI website builder worth talking about. Same request, same features, same starting point. And then I scored each one on the 5 things that actually decide whether a tool is worth your time: speed, ease of use, output quality, flexibility, and overall value. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which builder is best if you're just starting out, which one produces the strongest design, and which one that I would actually trust to build a real client-ready app in 2026. Because a couple of these came shockingly close to nailing it, and then at least one completely just kind of fell apart the second I asked for anything beyond the basics. Now, if you do want to master AI tools, and you really do want to learn how to build profitable SaaS apps, websites, AI agents, and mobile apps, of course, with AI, I've created a complete masterclass that shows you exactly how to do all of this step by step. Now, my masterclass normally costs $499 to join, but since you are watching this video, and thank you for investing your time with me, you can join completely free. Just check out that link in the description below to get your free access to the masterclass and start building your own AI-powered business today. All right, with all that said, let's get into this. To make this comparison fair, each platform will be judged across 5 weighted categories for a total of 100 points. There will be no separate score after every feature. The final result will reflect the complete experience, from sending that first prompt to reaching a working and usable app. The first category is speed to production, worth 25 points here. And this carries the most weight because time is one of the clearest ways to really measure what a platform can actually deliver. A builder that produces a usable app in 4 minutes offers more value than one that, say, takes 20 minutes and then still leaves errors behind. The score covers the entire process, beginning when the prompt is sent out and ending once the app works without requiring any further corrections. Speed alone, however, does not tell us whether the platform is easy to use, and that is why learning curve is worth 20 points. So this category focuses on how accessible the builder is for someone with no previous technical experience. And we're going to look at how clearly the interface guides the user, how errors are explained and resolved, and whether any external setup is required before the first build can even begin. And once the platform is easy enough to use, then the next question is whether the finished result is actually good. So output quality is also worth 20 points here and covers the design, functionality, and how ready the app is for real use. A visually impressive app will not score highly if its core features are broken. A simpler result where everything actually works correctly may just perform better. The AI coin scanning feature is especially important here because it is one of the main functions that defines our app. And then from there, we move to flexibility, which is worth another 20 points. And this just measures how well the platform handles the complete prompt without forcing the builder to leave the platform, configure outside services, or send multiple correction prompts just to make important features work. Native AI, a built-in database, and native authentication all contribute to this score. Platforms that rely on external API keys or separate services will lose points here because the full experience then becomes more complicated. And the final category is value for money, worth 15 points. And here, we're just going to compare what each platform includes at its entry-level price, especially when it comes to AI capabilities, authentication, databases, and other essential tools. 2 builders may charge a similar monthly fee, but the value is very different if one still requires separate API costs, database subscriptions, or extra credits to correct failed generations. So together, these 5 categories, they give us a much clearer view of what matters when building with AI in 2026. Speed is important, but it cannot come at the expense of functionality. A strong platform also needs to be easy to learn, capable of producing a reliable app, flexible enough to handle advanced features, and affordable as well, once every required service is taken into account. So for each platform here, the test begins the moment the same prompt is submitted. We record how long it takes to move from that first instruction to a usable result, while also noting whether the builder asks for clarification, requires additional setup, or needs more input before it can even begin. And this gives us a clear picture of how much effort really is required before the app is even ready to test. And the exact prompt used across all 5 platforms is this: build a coin collector app where users can add coins to their collection manually with details, or by uploading a photo of a coin and having a native AI automatically identify its details. Display the collection in a card grid with search by name, country, and other filters. Include a dashboard showing total coins, total collection value, and an analytics breakdown. Add user authentication so each collector only sees their own collection. Utilize a clean, professional, modern design. Once the first generation is complete with that prompt, we will walk through the app and really see how accurately each platform understood the full request. Now, what that means is testing manual coin entry, the card grid, search and filtering, the analytics dashboard, and user authentication. We're also going to look very closely at the overall design to see whether the result is ready for real users or still looks like an early prototype. The most important test will be the AI image scanning feature. A real coin photo will be uploaded to each app to see whether the platform can genuinely identify the coin and then return accurate details. This immediately exposes any builder that only produced a visual placeholder, returned hard-coded information, or requires an external API key before the feature can actually work. Any errors, broken features, missing functionality, correction prompts, or outside services will be included in the final evaluation. After the complete app has been tested, each platform will then receive its scores for speed to production, learning curve, output quality, flexibility, and value for money. So, Rocket. We'll start with Rocket now. I submitted the exact same prompt as before and began timing it from the moment the build started until there was something usable to test. Rocket took around, say, 15 minutes to complete the first generation, making it one of the slower platforms in the comparison here. The process also produced multiple errors along the way, so the build was already showing problems before we even reached the finished app. And once the app loaded, some parts of the prompt appeared to be present. There was a manual coin adding flow, a card-based collection view, search and filtering, a dashboard, and screens that appeared to support authentication and AI scanning. And at first glance, yes, it looked like Rocket had interpreted most of the request. Testing the features, however, did reveal a very different result. Manual coin entry was the only part that showed some usable functionality. The larger problems appeared as soon as we tested user accounts and AI scanning. Rocket does not include a native database, so the authentication system that it generated for us was only really a placeholder. It looked like a real login setup, yeah, but it could not securely create users or keep each collector's data separate. Real authentication would require an external database such as Supabase, which would then need to be configured separately. Now, the AI image scanning feature also had the same problem because Rocket does not have any native AI integration, so uploading a real photo did not produce genuine AI identified details. The feature could not work without, again, connecting an external AI service and then manually adding the required API keys. Rather than explaining limitation before the build, Rocket just used credits to generate screens and interactions that, yeah, they look functional, but did not deliver the requested result. And that leaves us with an app that is visually present, okay, but fundamentally incomplete. The card grid, search filters, and dashboard all help it resemble a coin collector app, but the two most important features are missing in practice. Authentication is not real, and AI scanning does not even function without significant outside setup. The repeated errors as well and the unclear limitations also make the platform difficult for a beginner to trust because it is not immediately obvious which parts are genuine and which are only placeholders. For speed to production, Rocket receives 5 out of 25. The 15-minute build time and multiple errors make it one of the weakest results in this category. Learning curve receives, say, a 6 out of 20 because the platform does not clearly communicate when external tools are required. Output quality scores 5 out of 20 since the app, looks complete on the surface, but it breaks on the most important functions. Flexibility receives 4 out of 20 because Rocket cannot even deliver native authentication or AI scanning from the prompt alone. Finally, value for money receives a 6 out of 15 because credits were still spent producing mockups that still required external databases, API keys, and additional setup to become usable. So that gives Rocket a final score of 26 out of 100. Next up, Replit gave us a very different result. The app took approximately 20 minutes to reach a properly working state, and several errors appeared during the build. Now, those issues had to be corrected before we could test the finished version, so even though Replit eventually delivered a complete result, the journey getting there was slower and more involved than I expected. After the corrections, most of the requested features were working. Coins could be added manually and displayed inside the collection, while the search and the filtering tools made it possible to sort through the saved entries. The dashboard here also worked as intended, giving users a very clear overview of their collection. Now, the strongest part of Replit's result was the AI image scanning, because, unlike Rocket, Replit has native AI capabilities, so the feature did not depend on any outside API key. As you can see, I uploaded a real coin photo and then the app returned details based on the image rather than showing me a fixed or hard-coded response. And that means the most important feature in this test was actually genuinely functional. Functionality was not the main problem here. The finished app had the most basic design of all of the 5 platforms, using a simple layout that looked closer to an early prototype than something ready to present to a client or to release publicly. Everything important was there, but the visual result needed more work before it could be considered production ready. So that creates an interesting trade-off here. Replit successfully completed the full scope of the prompt, including the feature that Rocket could not even deliver, but it did take the longest build time and required several fixes along the way. A more technical user may be comfortable working through these problems, while a complete beginner, however, could find the whole process a bit frustrating. The 20-minute build and repeated corrections give Replit 10 out of 25 for speed to production. Its learning curve score is 11 out of 20 because resolving the errors does require a bit more patience and technical confidence than some of the other platforms here. Output quality receives a 12 out of 20. The app works, yes, but its basic design just limits how ready it is for real users. Replit earns 15 out of 20 for flexibility because it did handle the complete feature set and delivered genuine native AI scanning. And then value for money comes in at a 12 out of 15 since the platform can produce a functional AI-powered app without requiring another AI service, although the longer process does reduce the value slightly. And so Replit finishes with a total score of 60 out of 100. Alright, so Replit showed that having native AI can make a major difference, but it also showed how quickly a long build and repeated errors can slow the entire process down. Bolt takes us in a different direction. The experience is much faster and more straightforward at first, although one major limitation eventually keeps it from really competing with the top 2 platforms here. And so I sent that same exact prompt and waited approximately about 8 minutes for the first version to finish. And the result captured most of the requested structure and presented everything through a simple, clean interface. As you can see, it was not the most visually distinctive app in this comparison group, but the layout nonetheless was organized, easy to follow, and already looked usable enough without requiring major design changes. Testing these standard features went well, coins could be added manually, and the saved entries appeared properly inside the card grid. Search and filtering worked, the dashboard displayed the collection information, and the authentication flow also functioned correctly. So for a normal collection tracker, Bolt had already handled most of the important parts. The limitation became clear once I tested the feature that matters most in this build. I uploaded a real coin photo and attempted to use the AI scanner, but Bolt could not identify the coin natively. The platform does not include built-in AI integration for this type of feature, so the scanner would just need an external AI service and manually configured API keys before it could actually work. And that is a serious problem for this particular app. The AI scanner is what just turns it from a standard coin database into something genuinely useful and different. Manual entry can still track a collection, but asking users to type every single detail themselves just removes the main advantage promised in the original prompt. Bolt still produced a clean and functional result overall. The app is easy to navigate, authentication works, and the core collection tools are reliable. Also, the design is simple but good looking, placing it ahead of Replit visually. The missing native AI feature, however, leaves the app incomplete and just prevents it from being fully production ready without additional outside setup. So Bolt will get 18 out of 25 here for speed to production because it did the 8-minute build quite quickly and it was relatively fast. Learning curve scores a 15 out of 20 since the platform is easy to use for the standard features, although configuring an outside AI service would then create a more technical process. Output quality receives a 14 out of 20 because the app does look good and most of it does work, but its central feature is still unavailable. Flexibility comes in at a 10 out of 20 due to the lack of native AI and the need for external API keys. Value for money receives an 11 out of 15 because the initial experience is competitive. However, the cost and the setup increase once another AI service is required. And that brings Bolt to a final score of 68 out of 100, placing it in third. So by this point in this comparison, the pattern is becoming clear. Building the interface is only one part of the task. The real challenge is whether a platform can connect authentication, data management, and AI scanning into one app without leaving major gaps behind. Lovable now has to prove that it can handle all of those requirements while still producing something that looks ready for real users. Again, I submitted that same prompt and waited approximately 8 minutes for the build to finish up. And Lovable did not require any additional clarification before getting started. And the first generation included the main structure requested in the prompt. The collection appeared in a card grid, while manual entry, search, filtering, the dashboard, authentication, and image scanning were all available to test. Now, I started by adding a coin manually, and then the flow worked correctly. The details were saved and displayed properly inside of my collection. Search and filtering also worked as expected, making it easy to browse entries by details, such as the coin's name or the coin's country. The dashboard here presented the collection totals and analytics clearly, while the authentication system also worked properly and really did keep each user's collection separate. The most important task was the image scanning. So I uploaded a real coin photo to see whether Lovable would genuinely analyze the image or return a result that only looked convincing. The platform identified correctly details from the uploaded coin without requiring an external API key. The information could then be used inside of the collection, showing yes, that the scanner was connected to the rest of the app rather than existing as a separate demonstration. The visual quality also stood out during the walkthrough here. As you can see, the layout was very clean, it's professional, and more distinctive than the other apps tested so far. The collection cards were organized well, the dashboard was easy to read, and the finished result looked more suitable for a client or public launch without requiring a complete redesign. On pure design quality, Lovable produced the strongest output in this comparison. Its main disadvantage is the 8-minute build time, which is still competitive but not the fastest result here. Pricing is another consideration because Lovable can add usage-based charges on top of the subscription. And that makes the final cost less predictable as more generations and platform resources are used. Lovable receives a 20 out of 25 for speed to production. Learning Curve earns 17 out of 20 because the platform handles the major systems without demanding complicated external setup. Output Quality receives a 19 out of 20, the highest score in this category due to the strong design and working functionality. Flexibility comes in at an 18 out of 20 because Lovable did successfully deliver authentication, data management, and genuine AI scanning as part of the same build. Value for Money receives a 13 out of 15, reflecting the quality of the result while still accounting for its less predictable usage-based pricing. So Lovable finishes up with a total score of 87 out of 100, placing it in second place. Now, after testing 4 platforms, we've already seen the main ways an AI builder can kind of fall short. Some can create a good interface, but then cannot handle native AI. Others can complete the full app, yes, but only after a long build and several corrections. Base44 is the final platform in this comparison, so the question now is whether it can bring every part of the prompt together without repeating those same problems. And so I submitted the same prompt and started the timer. Base44 did not ask for clarification or require any outside setup before beginning. And then, approximately 4 minutes later, pretty fast, the complete app was ready to test. No errors appeared during the build, and I didn't have to send a correction prompt before moving into the walkthrough. Now, the first generation here covered the full scope of my request. Manual coin entry was available, the collection appeared in a card grid, and the search and filtering tools were already connected to the saved data. The dashboard as well also included the total number of coins, the overall collection value, and an analytics breakdown. And I began by adding a coin manually, and the information saved and appeared in the collection correctly. Search and filtering worked as expected, while the dashboard updated to reflect the collection data. And then the authentication flow was also ready from the start because Base44 already includes native authentication and a built-in database. So each collector could now access their own collection without needing Supabase or any other external service. Now, the image scanner was the most important test. I uploaded a real coin photo to see whether the app would indeed genuinely analyze it or just return a placeholder result. And Base44 identified the coin and produced accurate details from the image. No external API key was required, and the result did connect directly to the coin adding flow. The design was clean, it was professional, and suitable for real users. Of course, Lovable still had a slight advantage in pure visual quality, but Base44 did deliver a complete app where every major feature still worked correctly from the first generation. Nothing important was missing, and no additional services had to be configured before the app could actually be usable. The whole experience was also the easiest for a complete beginner because native AI, authentication, and the database were all already part of the platform, so there was no need to understand hosting configuration, API connections, or separate back-end tools. Its pricing also follows the same all-in-one approach, making the cost more accessible and predictable than platforms that still add external services or usage-based charges. Base44 earns 24 out of 25 for speed to production after completing the app in approximately 4 minutes without errors or corrections. And then Learning Curve receives 19 out of 20 because the entire process is accessible even without previous technical experience. As for output quality, it scores a 17 out of 20. The result is professional and fully functional, although of course Lovable did produce a slightly stronger visual design. Flexibility earns 19 out of 20 because Base 44 handles native AI, authentication, database management, and the full prompt without having to rely on outside services. Finally, value for money receives a 14 out of 15 due to its transparent pricing and the number of essential systems already included. Base 44 finishes with a 93 out of 100, the highest total here in the comparison. So now that all 5 builds are complete, the final report card makes the differences much easier to see. Rocket finishes with 26 out of 100, Replit with 60, Bolt with 68, Lovable with 87, and Base 44 takes first place with 93. Rocket finishes last, and the gap is significant. It took 15 minutes to produce an app filled with placeholders, while the authentication and the AI scanning still both fail to work in any meaningful way. Also, real authentication would still require an external database, and the scanner would also still need separately configured API keys. The worst part is that Rocket never even made those limitations clear to me before using credits to build screens that only looked functional. And so for a beginner, that would create the impression that the app is ready to go, great, but the most important systems are still missing. Replit comes in fourth, its native AI support is a real advantage, and the scanner did successfully identify a coin from an uploaded photo. Manual entry, search, filtering, authentication, and the dashboard also worked once the earlier problems were fixed. The 20-minute build time, however, repeated errors and basic visual design just keep it from ranking any higher. So Replit can complete the app, but it does require more patience and technical confidence than the stronger options. Now Bolt takes third place with 68. The 8-minute build was quite competitive, the design was clean, and the standard features did work well, including authentication and manual coin entry. Its biggest limitation is the lack of native AI. The scanner cannot identify a coin without external services and an API key, leaving the app without the feature that does give it its main purpose. Now Bolt remains a good option for simpler front-end projects, but it falls short once native AI becomes a central requirement. Lovable finishes second with 87. It produced the strongest visual results in this comparison, while also still delivering working authentication, manual entry, search, analytics, and genuine AI image scanning. The app looked ready for real users and handled the full scope of the request well. Its 8-minute build time is still respectable, but Base 44 was twice as fast. Lovable's pricing is also less predictable because of additional usage-based costs, and that can sit on top of your subscription. For builders who do care most about design quality, then Lovable is your strongest alternative. Base 44 takes the top spot with 93 out of 100. It completed the app in approximately a speedy 4 minutes, produced no errors, and did not require any correction prompts. Native authentication and the built-in database were also included automatically, while the AI scanner returned accurate details from a real coin photo without any external API keys. It also earned the strongest scores for speed, learning curve, flexibility, and value. Lovable slightly outperformed it in visual output, but Base 44 still delivered the more complete overall experience. The most revealing difference here across all 5 of these platforms is whether genuine native AI is available. Rocket and Bolt could not complete the scanner without outside services, which immediately just removed the core feature of the app. Replit, Lovable, and Base 44 all delivered working AI scanning, but the experience around that capability did vary greatly. Replit took longer and required more corrections, Lovable created the strongest design, and Base 44 handled the entire build faster and with fewer complications. So the right platform ultimately depends on what matters most for the project. Lovable is the better choice when visual design is the highest priority and a longer build or less predictable pricing is acceptable. Bolt can work well for simpler applications where AI is not required. Replit is suitable for builders who are already comfortable resolving errors and spending more time inside the development process. Now, Rocket is difficult to recommend for client-facing work in its current state. For most builders, though, Base 44 is the strongest all-around choice. It combines speed, ease of use, native AI, authentication, data management, and predictable pricing in one platform. And that balance is what gives it the highest score and makes it the overall winner of this comparison. So the 5-category scoring system made this comparison more useful than a single overall rating ever could. A final number tells us who won, but the category breakdown explains why. Rocket's score of 26 is not just low, it shows that the platform struggles with speed, flexibility, and output quality because its authentication was only a placeholder and the AI scanner could not work natively. And the same breakdown makes it easier to see what every platform does well and where the experience starts to fall apart. The Coin Collector app also exposed differences that a simple landing page would never reveal. Every platform had to manage user data, create working authentication, connect search and filtering to the collection, build an analytics dashboard, and then identify a real coin through image scanning. A basic website could make all 5 builders look capable, but this project showed the authentication gap between Base 44 and Rocket, the AI gap between Lovable and Bolt, and the speed differences between Base 44 and Replit. The clearest lesson is that native AI can no longer be treated as an optional extra in 2026. Any platform claiming to build intelligent products should be able to deliver AI functionality without forcing the user to configure outside services and API keys. Rocket and Bolt both missed that requirement, which meant the most important feature of the app could not even work out of the box. So for builders trying to launch products where AI is central to the experience, that limitation just creates more setup, more cost, and more opportunities for things to break. Choosing the right platform now comes down to the needs of the project and how technical that you want the process to become. Base 44 is the strongest place to start here when the app requires native AI, authentication, a database, and a fast path to a working result. Lovable is the better alternative when visual design matters more than build speed or predictable pricing. Bolt again does remain a solid choice for straightforward front-end projects where AI is not necessary, while Replit does make more sense for technically confident builders who are comfortable spending longer sessions fixing errors. Again, with Rocket, it's difficult to recommend here for client-facing work at this stage. So from here, the best next step is to keep building on the platforms that performed well and test them against the type of product that you actually want to create. The comparison here gives you a good starting point, but the real value comes from seeing how each builder handles your own features, your data, and your users. All right, thank you for sticking around and investing your time with me today. I'll see you at the next build.